This video will contain spoilers from the manga, so if you're not caught up, please go catch up and then come back to this video. Alright, so this video is a continuation of my Wano dissection so far, my Wano arc analysis slash discussion. So you can go watch that and come back and watch this, or you could just stay and watch this because this is a complete Act 2 dissection in which we're just going through it and talking about how it's been so far, the themes, the plot, the progression, all of this fun stuff. So without further ado, let's get into Act 2. Well, Act 2 actually has an amazing start. It's almost like a Thriller Bark flashback in which we get Mihawk, Perona, and Moria in the same chapter. I know Mihawk wasn't in Thriller Bark, but it feels like he should have been. But he has ties to Perona, and Perona has ties to Moria, so it felt like Thriller Bark. Amazing beginning chapter because, of course, Perona and Mihawk, they're reading about Moria in the newspaper, and they're also giving us some hints as to what is being discussed at the Reverie, because the Reverie, the main thing that we've been talking about for several years, is the abolishment of the Shichibukai system, because Fujitora, that's what he wanted. And Mihawk is even saying, hey, Perona, it's probably best if you leave this place, because an odd subject has arisen at the Reverie. And for Mihawk to say this, that means he's somewhat worried, and this shows somewhat of a progression between Mihawk's and Perona's relationship, but Mihawk is telling Perona to actually leave. Now, this is not even the main thing or the hype thing that happened in this chapter. We got insane reveals at the beginning of Act 2. For some reason, Moria thought it would be best to attack the Blackbeard pirates and not only attack the Blackbeard pirates, to talk smack to the Blackbeard pirates. Mind you, these Blackbeard pirates dismantled the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates that Moria and his entire crew could not hold a candle to. We find out in the most odd and peculiar way that Absalom, Moria's guy, his crewmate, has died. It was odd on so many levels because we see Shiryu, and Shiryu was able to swipe Moria, but he was invisible. And then we see Absalom, and Absalom is talking as if he knows Moria, so it was confusing for a moment. And Moria was even shocked at it because he's saying, wait, I see Absalom, but then I see Shiryu's power. And immediately while reading this chapter, I'm thinking, did Blackbeard figure out a way to take a devil fruit without killing someone? Because then that's just, oh my god, that's just on another level. Insanity. Nope, that was Katarina Devon, and she actually has a devil fruit, the dog fruit, mythical type, model, nine-tailed fox. And Shiryu ate Absalom's fruit. Now, as far as why Shiryu would eat Absalom's fruit, for a lot of us, we felt like that fruit was okay. You can turn invisible, but with the powers in place, it seems like a fruit like that is only built for pre-time skip, because post-time skip, of course, you have observation haki, future sight, things of that nature. However, it could present a different type of challenge. We assume for Zoro, people are saying that Shiryu may fight Sanji because he can turn invisible now. I don't see it at all. Like, why would we say that? I don't. At the end, when Luffy fights the Blackbeard pirates, Zoro will be fighting Shiryu. That's just it. We also got Blackbeard's bounty, over 2.2 billion, which is an amazing come up for somebody that didn't have a bounty at all when we first got introduced to him. We also saw that the revolutionary captains fought with Green Bull and Fujitora. I probably can't think of a better start to Act 2 other than Shanks showing up on that island with his crew to challenge Blackbeard and his crew. That would have been amazing, but it would have sucked because we wouldn't see it. I wish I could say that was the end of the chapter. Well, actually, I don't, but we got some Shutamaru stuff, and this is where it kind of solidified that Shutamaru was an amazing character for me, because Shutamaru gave it perspective as far as the whole Wano thing and the 20 years, that gap, that blip that Kinemon and the others, they really don't feel because they didn't get to live through it. They didn't have to live through it. They felt like Shutamaru should have joined their cause, and he should be happy-go-lucky about them being back. Well, Shutamaru gave it perspective and said, hey, I've had to live through this for 20 years. I've had to see my country wallow in pity for 20 years. You can't just come back and assume everyone is going to jump for joy at the return of the Kozoki Samurai. You left this country for 20 years. That absence won't ever vanish. It was just an amazing rebuttal, an amazing retort to just the shonen trope or logic of, we're here now, let's fix it. I absolutely loved that. Furthermore, we got the reveal for King the Wildfire and Queen the Plague, and we saw the interactions with them and Jack, and that was awesome. It wasn't an amazing reveal. We've seen a lot better reveals of commanders or even hype characters. Katakuru's reveal was, that shit was epic, in which he saw the future, then he used the fucking jelly bean to take out Jigra, I believe. Epic, but Katakuri in general, everything that revolves around him is epic. Act 2 is ongoing, right? And the plan is to recruit more people for their cause, even though they're 5,000 strong and we haven't had any real opposition on Kaido's side that seems to be a threat. But regardless, we have to recruit more people. And this was kind of deepening the lore of Wano as far as like the things that were going on. Because in this chapter, 926, not only do we hear of Hitakori Kamazo, we also learn of the Witching Arrow Boy. We also learn of the crest that's being passed around to recruit different samurai or different people of Wano. It laid out everything that the Straw Hats or different people of the Alliance were doing to recruit people. Sanji was of course using his soba shop. Usopp was selling his Todo oil. But then we switched to Udon, in which Oda is somehow building up this rivalry or this relationship between Luffy and Kid, in which he felt no real threat because it seemed like a glorified training arc. Kid and Luffy were just running the place. They were doing everything that they wanted to do, or that they could do, but they were the shining stars of the prison yard. The Vice Warden was yet again another failed gifter that we had no fear for, so it didn't feel as intimidating, but it was cool seeing Kid again. And of course, the more we get from Kid, the better as far as people that want some balance within the supernova, because we were so far and away ahead of the others, we just want somebody else to catch up. 927 made for some interesting character reveals or character meetings. We meet Toko. She was a little girl that seemed to smile a lot. We meet Kurosaki, or somebody who was the most beautiful woman in Wano, and we also meet napping Kyoshiro again. It felt like this act was going out of its way to show the more traditional side of Wano, showing Kurosaki and her procession, showing the different layouts and the different doors, showing the environment of Wano. It was trying to deepen us and our connection to Wano by letting us know the inner workings of everything that was going on in Wano. And of course, at the end, we saw a silhouette of what was supposed to be the shoguns. The next few chapters are also pretty good. We got some more information as far as the Udon prison and how you could possibly escape. We met some old characters such as Caribou and this random character Old Man Hio. But then we got some information in regards to Kid, because Kid had been slandered ever since we saw him take an L to Kaido. Now Kid is one of the characters who had engaged with every single Yonko other than Blackbeard. When I say engage with a crew or a territory, something to do with the Yonko. Kid clarified a lot of things. He said first, he never tried to go after Big Mom. His goal was to wound one of her generals and take what he meant to take. He accomplished that. Secondly, he lost his arm in a battle with the Red Hair Pirates. Before any of that, it was such an amazing thing for Kid to just come on out and say all these things, because it didn't feel like a villain just spewing how he was going to take some things down or just useless rhetoric. It felt really well timed. Like Oda saved all this stuff for Kid to tell us himself what happened. And of course, it's always better to hear it from the horse's mouth. And this all stemmed from Caribou underestimating Kid because of all the L's that Kid supposedly took. So for Oda, he was somewhat telling us do not underestimate Kid because Kid is really powerful. The narrative just hasn't been in his favor. Oda also tried to give us a perspective of Kurosaki, or a narrative of Kurosaki, in which he gave us a story in which this old man was doing everything possible to get Kurosaki to like him or to be with him. And she took all his money, and in turn, she just shit on him. She said that she didn't want anything to do with him. I think that was a bit forced, in which Oda was trying to paint this picture of Kurosaki, but I think it was somewhat telegraphed that, okay, we know that happened, but there has to be a reason to it. And of course, by now, if you're caught up, you know exactly what happened with this old man, what they were trying to do, him and two other guys, what they were trying to do to people, and that's why Kurosaki was using them. What was also telegraphed was Kurosaki's true identity. In the same chapter in which we find out some more about Kurosaki, or her actual name, Momo says that he's looking for his baby sister, Hiyori. And everyone said, well, it can't be that obvious, right? That Kurosaki is Hiyori? Well, yeah, Kurosaki ended up being Hiyori, and it just felt like very anticlimactic because it was super telegraphed. Frankie and what he's been doing has been somewhat of the more useless stuff in which we don't really care about it, because Frankie's trying to find the layouts of Onigashima, that mansion, but it seems like he's going on a chase trying to find it because one person had it, then they passed it to the next person, and it just seemed like a repetitive thing that Oda is trying to do. I don't think it was a bad moment in the story. It was just coming off of exposition from Kurosaki, from Sanji, from Nami. It felt like a huge lump of just, hey, this is what everyone's doing, so this is just to keep you updated as to where they are. It wasn't bad, I just felt like it should have been placed in between better things happening, because after a while you're just reading just to read, because it's just catching us up as to where everyone is. Upon arriving to the ruins of Odin, Zoro veered off and did his own thing, because people felt like Oda was trying to delay the meeting of Zoro and Sanji. And we see Zoro, he meets somewhat of a useless character, we feel like at the time, Toneyasu. We know that Toneyasu would have been important because he seemed to have too much of a prominent role in the story, but this meeting was to give us some more exposition on the town of Ibisu. Around this time, it wasn't so bad because we not only got some more exposition on who Shogun Orochi is, we got an entire reveal. The thing is here, in which I feel like a lot of people were let down, is that people had a perspective or a perception of how the Shogun would look and how you would act. The Shogun, for some people, is what they expected, a weakling who was hiding behind Kaido's name. We saw it with his meeting with CP0, in which everything revolved around Kaido. The threat level, everything that the Marines could do, they couldn't do because of Kaido. And he seemed to be someone that was just basking in the glory of Kaido. But that's not to say, seeing the hype reveal of X-Drake's hybrid form and page 1 was pretty cool. With the Ibisu town and the people just laughing all the time, it gave us some pause. There was cause for pause because we were wondering, like, why was this happening? And Szura himself, he was wondering, why could they only smile? But I think in this chapter 930 is where things went left, where we did not expect it. Or I guess some people did, but not this way. Big Mom showed up to Wano. And for some people, they were tired of Big Mom because of everything that transpired in Whole Cake Island with Big Mom. When she was out of her mind, was screaming wedding cake for, it seems like 15 chapters. But Big Mom was there with the Big Mom pirates. Not all of them, but some of them. I think personally, I would have liked if Katakuri was there, but I understand based on what happened in which King knocked over the ship why Katakuri couldn't be there. There'd be no way to justify how King would do that with someone like Katakuri on the ship. Granted, with someone like Daifuku, Perospero, and Smoothie being there is still kind of crazy, but King was able to topple over the Big Mom's ship and for that moment, quell that threat. It was also funny because we saw a side of Kaido that we hadn't seen before, in which it was somewhat fear of Big Mom, in which Kaido said, don't let her up here, right? Because if we do, it's going to be a full-scale war. Well, Kaido-san, Sama, you wanted a war, and engaging with Big Mom, of course you said it would be a full-scale war, but I guess he wanted a bigger war than that, or just not a war with her. And from this, for the community's sake, I guess we ran into more issues in which we got Stealth Black Sanji. And people had an issue with Sanji as far as him not showing some reservations with using the raid suit. For me, I felt like Whole Cake Island was the time for that. In chapter 903, when Luffy got revealed to have a 1.5 billion berry bounty, Sanji said he would never use the mask or the raid suit for power. Jumping forward, him just using it casually, people had an issue with that. For me, the time for Sanji to ponder those things, it had gone. And for him, the raid suit was being used in a specific situation. That's why for me, I always felt like the raid suit is going to be situational and not be a one-to-one power-up. And it kind of validated the things I said throughout the fight because Sanji just used the raid suit's powers. He did not use anything that he had worked on himself. One could say Oda is saving that for a much tougher fight because page 1 is just a random member of the Flying Six. But I think there's a lot there to say that Sanji probably isn't going to use the raid suit and incorporate his fighting style with it. If he does that, it does go against everything he said that he wouldn't do. But then people are going to bring up what Sanji said about not cooking for anyone other than his friends and then making a cake for Big Mom. Sanji, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he says, because if his friends are in danger, he's going to do what it takes to save them. And at that time, baking the cake for Big Mom is what was going to save them. How it was executed, besides the point. And if I'm going to be honest, I think this is the moment where a lot of people started to have major questions about Wano. After being washed up, when King tipped over the Big Mom pirate ship, Big Mom washed up in an island in which she appeared before Chopper, Kiku, Momonosuke, and Tama, and Big Mom had lost her memories. It felt a bit like Big Mom was there because she had to be there for plot's sake. For Big Mom to lose her memories again, it brought back feelings of Whole Cake Island, where a lot of people really hated Big Mom chasing the Straw Hats for that many chapters. Some people felt like it was disrespectful to Big Mom. Some people felt like it was disrespectful to the Yonko as a group. As annoyed as I was at times with Big Mom chasing the Straw Hats, I can't be upset at Big Mom having a completely different personality than what we expect. She's quirky, so things like this are going to happen to her. As I mentioned before, she's malleable. She's a character in which Oda can play around with. Like Sanji, she's not the type like Kaido or Shanks, in which being an edgelord is what they're good at, or being this strong, dominant personality is what they're good at. Big Mom is somewhat an embodiment of human imperfection, and for her, you never know what to expect. The Shogun Orochi and Kurosaki stuff was a bit weird. Now knowing what we know, and going back to it, Orochi of course being paranoid at the Red Scabbards and all of those guys. His followers did not take him seriously. But beyond that, Otoko was laughing at Orochi, and she said that she couldn't stop. So of course the Shogun, being afraid of unfinished business from 20 years ago, pulls out his sword to strike down Toko, who is somewhat Kurosaki's assistant. In a previous chapter, Orochi said that he was going to make Kumasaki his, so he had eyes for Kumasaki. Kumasaki slaps Orochi, and Orochi, being somewhat of an insecure guy, he goes full Zoan mode and was ready to take out Kumasaki. Kyoshiro cuts down Kumasaki, and now we know that Kumasaki obviously didn't die. So what was Kyoshiro's point of doing that? What is his role going forward in Wano? So in the Act 1 discussion, I mentioned Kyoshiro. When we first saw him, it was an air about him that felt like it was different. That felt like he was going to be a worthy adversary. But this threw a monkey wrench in things because he helped the alliance. He let Kumasaki escape, and in turn, fulfilled his duty to Orochi. So Kyoshiro is still an unknown character in which we're not sure exactly what his motives are. And in this same chapter, 933, Chopper tells Big Mom it's best to go get Ushiruko from Udon, where Luffy is. So now, upon knowing Big Mom is going to Udon, of course, when we get back to Udon, Queen is showing up, and Queen is taking over the proceedings of the prison. And now Queen seems to take pleasure in torture, so now he's trying to torture Straw Hat Luffy. At this point, Kid had escaped. So with anticipation, we were waiting for Luffy versus Queen. And of course, upon getting more insight as to the old man that Luffy met, knowing that he was a really important guy, we expected some really important stuff going down at the prison. But mind you, Big Mom was still on the way. And this is not really Big Mom, her new alias, Olin. Queen, like I said, was really into the torture stuff. So for him, that was the goal, to put Luffy through different situations to somewhat torture him. But for Luffy, a glorified training arc, like I mentioned in Act 1. Or earlier in this discussion. Udon did not feel threatening. It felt like it was there for Luffy to get stronger. And now Luffy had met someone who was a big guy or big boss in the past. Is this guy going to be the person to train Luffy? I suppose so. In the midst of all this, in which the scenario was recreated, in which it was a collar that was placed on Luffy, and going back to Memorale at Sabaody, there was a collar placed on Kami. He really had to take this collar off. Luffy now had a collar, and Luffy, this moment, is trying to learn the same haki that Rayleigh showed him right before the time skip on Riskaina. It just so happens that Hyogoro also knows this advanced form of haki. But before that, we got some Zoro stuff, some really cool Zoro stuff. And this stuff I'm talking about, is the stuff with Gyukumaru on the bridge, in which we found out more about the Black Blade. It seems like Zoro was ignorant as to his position, his role as a fighter. What I mean was, Gyukumaru called it out by saying that Zoro came across like a boy that was greedy, and he only thought for his own desires. Where of course Zoro's desire is to become the world's greatest swordsman, and in part that would help Luffy become the Pirate King, and of course he would live up to Mihawk's oath and Kuina's expectation of him. Gyukumaru was disappointed because he seemed to be a strong samurai, but he was selfish. He had only his own desires. It seemed like he didn't think about what his sword wanted as well. And again, this goes back to him forging or creating a black blade. He does have Shisui, but that was forged by Ryuma through his experiences. In the midst of this fight, guess who shows up? Kumasaki, who was supposedly struck down by Kyoshiro. But Kumasaki is not alone. Remember Hitokiri, Kamazo that we met a couple of chapters ago, or not met, we heard about. He's now chasing Kumasaki. And this leads to a Zoro versus Kamazo fight in which he calls Kamazo strong, but managed to take him down with relative ease. Of course, Zoro passed out after the fact, but he took down Kamazo. Now, where are we? Zoro is there with Kumasaki and Toko. And also in the midst of all this, after the fight with Kamazo, when Zoro and Kumasaki is alone, we find out that Kumasaki, surprise, surprise, is Lady Hiyori. So before we move on, do you guys understand like where a lot of viewers see Wano? As far as Act 2, it had an amazing start, but there's been some missteps as far as like how things were revealed, how things are playing out, how things are being fleshed out. It seems all too predictable and telegraphed. Not necessarily everything, because there's a moment here that we got that wasn't telegraphed at all, that no one really saw. Well, one person did, or a few people did, but most did not see this coming, which I'll mention a bit later. So a few things. Udon now, of course, Luffy's trying to learn advanced haki from Hyogoro because he knows how to use it. It's a glorified training arc, like I said. But in the midst of all this, Yasu, who Zoro met ways back, talking about Ibisu Town, he's actually an important figure from the past. He's actually one of the daimyo who stood alongside Lord Oden, and he supported the Kozoki clan. He was the daimyo of Hakumae, Yasu the Hedgehog, and Orochi had chosen to execute him publicly as an example. Of course, most people thought he was dead, Orochi as well, but Orochi was going to use this moment to win the people over. It's weird to me that Orochi would think these things, because there's nothing that sparks a rebellion more than a martyr. And that's exactly what Yasu wanted to be. He wanted to be a ray of hope, a symbol, something tangible that people could point to as to the reason why they're doing it. The previous reason no longer existed, which was the betterment of Wano. After 20 years, Wano was almost unrecognizable. There's no way you could use that as fuel anymore. That was no longer the motivation. So Yasu and everything he did, it created the perfect motivation. It created the perfect motivation and diversion for the Alliance, in which the Alliance had been found out. Some of the people had been captured, but Yasu and his sacrifice, by saying that, oh, I'm the witching hour boy, all of those things were made up by me. It hit the reset button not only for the Alliance, but for the people of Wano, because now they had something to look up to, something to fight for. Shutamaru as well, because that's something he was searching for. Who do I fight for? Of course, he saw Luffy and was intrigued by Luffy, but this is just icing on the cake. Added fuel that the people of Wano needed. The fuel was also for the Straw Hats. For one, Orochi was placing Smile in the food or in the leftovers of the people of Ebisu Town, so that turned them into people that could not show emotions other than smiling. So even at Yasu's death, they couldn't smile. For Chopper, of course, people being sick, he's going to be motivated to heal them no matter what. For Zoro, he spent some time with Toko. He spent some time with Yasu. Toko is the daughter of Yasu. Seeing him being executed in public, that angered Zoro. So for the Straw Hats, for most of them, it created a new level of motivation for them as well. Again, the reset button was hit not only for the people of Wano, but for our characters, our Alliance. It was a second wind because we were going the other way fast. Now the brilliance of Oda, I think it shines through here in this chapter 944, in which our expectations were just through the roof for Wano. And I think moments like this is where we look at Wano and we say, you know what? Wano's been good, man. Wano's been really good. So first off, this is where Zoro and Sanji meet. Basically to stop the death of Toko. Nothing major happened. We had some typical Zoro and Sanji banter. Nothing crazy. But I did ask some questions after this chapter. I was validated by Kirishiro somewhat stopping Zoro / casually, and even smiling after the fact, and stating himself to be the dog of Orochi. Does this mean he can't oppose Orochi? I have a view or theory on the dogs of the One Piece world, which will be coming. That's a video as well. But I did like what Kirishiro was able to do versus Zoro. We also saw Sanji versus X Drake. Now, this is not the first time this was telegraphed. Does this mean X Drake and Sanji, that's a fight that's to come? Because it's been several times which X Drake and Sanji were supposed to fight. Of course, first in the bathhouse when X Drake was looking for the soba shop owner, and now X Drake again versus Sanji. So I'm not sure if this is what's to come for Sanji in the future. Next, the major reveal of Kamazo and who he actually is. Okay, so when you first met Kamazo, he seemed like a cool guy, right? He used a scythe, he had bandages everywhere, he was always smiling, He was always smiling. Of course, we didn't get the information about Ebisu Town before that, so we didn't put two and two together, but now we know about Ebisu Town, in which the people were fed leftovers, and now all they can do is smile. So Kamazo was fed leftovers, but why is he serving the Shogun? And when we found out, because Kid escaped, but somehow he comes back to Udon. How did they catch him? He saw them carrying Kamazo away, and he shouted out to Kamazo. And then Kid starts to say, hey, how did they make you this way? You always hated your laugh. What did they do to my partner? Killer. A huge reveal that Kamazo was actually Killer. It was something, again, few expected. My boy GOAW on Twitter, he expected it. But few people saw this coming. It reset a lot of the power scaling things people felt because we saw what Zoro was able to do to Kamazo. There's some caveats in there that I won't get into right now, but that was amazing. That is some amazing stuff. Oda played that out perfectly. Bumpy road getting there, but whew, damn did it pay off. Up to this point, the Wano roller coaster, I think it really began in Act 2, which Oda's trying to deepen our connection to not only Wano, but the characters. Introduce more characters from the past, some new characters, some old characters like Caribou. He had a lot going on, maybe too much, but for payoffs like Kamazo being Killer, it's a lot to expect, but I think it pays off in the end. There are a few issues that the Straw Hats have now. One is Law, with Law's crewmates being captured by Hawkins, in which Hawkins is using Law's crewmates as his straw dolls, so Law really can't attack Hawkins right now. I guess that's what the narrative is trying to say. Law does have mess, or his heart surgery, which he can take your heart out. He should be able to do that to Hawkins. He should be able to, so that should be fine. But then we got Big Mom versus Queen, and Big Mom was able to overwhelm Queen, and then after Queen came back and did a brachio bomber, and Big Mom knocked out Big Mom. Now Queen has taken Big Mom to Onigashima to remove Big Mom from Udon, but now Luffy is fighting Old Maid and some of the people there because they've given up on Wano. Now the goal for Luffy is to not only inspire these people to follow them, but to also change a perception of how they view Wano, make them care about Wano again. The thing is, Luffy is not the person to do that. And the chapter 948, did that perfectly. They brought relics from the past that the people knew about, because Luffy, as well known as he is outside of Wano, the people don't know who he is. They knew Okiku more, Raizo, Hyogoro, Kawamatsu. So by using those people, Oda set it up perfectly, in which now, seeing these people fight for their country, you have something to rally around. So that's the last chapter, 948, with Kawamatsu's reveal and Okiku's reveal, I guess. How do we feel about it? I think Act 2. I would give it an 8 out of 10. 7.5 to 8 out of 10. We had too many moments of exposition together. When I say exposition on what the Straw Hats were doing. In comparison to Act 1, which I felt like was almost perfect, Act 2 dropped the ball in some moments. But if we combine the two, where Act 1 is 9 out of 10, Act 2 7.5 to 8 out of 10. What's Wano overall right now? Personally, for me, Wano overall right now is an 8.5 out of 10. So many amazing moments already, and I can't even imagine what's going to go down towards the end of the chapter. We've got an exposition on not only Kaido, the history of Wano, but also advanced Haki. I expect a lot more because we're going to get some more information on the Rocks Pirates, on what happened to Kaido in the past. I think we may go back to the Reverie and see what happened there. Technically, that would be a part of Wano. I don't think there's need to panic so far in regards to Wano because it's been good. And I think we just have to be patient and let things play out a bit more because Oda is setting it up. Oda has had this arc in mind for a while. I know something came out recently saying that Oda has had to change some things about Wano because things has played out differently, but that's Oda's style. If something is better and he sees it's going to be better by incorporating this character, maybe Caribou wasn't supposed to be a part of Wano initially. Let me include Caribou, but we know Caribou was captured by X-Drake, so he's going to show up at some point, but maybe he wasn't going to be a part of Udon. Oda said, hey, let me use this character here. He fits here. That's what I see. That's my vision. How do you feel about Wano overall? Of course, some people left it in the community tab, but let me know now that we've gone through the entire arc so far. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts? Let me know below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.